Hey, what's up, world? It is the HPR Chronicles Podcast with Shakur and Smith. I am Shakur.
I'm Smith.
Smith is chilling, laid back today, guys. If you're joining us for the first time, you know, Smith is a veteran of the Army Reserve and he currently works for the VA. I'm a film and TV director, producer. We both have a love for history, politics, and race, hence the name, the HPR Chronicles Podcast. Like always, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. It's ISENT Group Digital on YouTube, and thank you for listening where you get your podcast. Like we always say, guys, and you know we were able to make it through Black History Month. Had some good shows. If you didn't catch those, go back and check some of those out. And today we're talking about reparations. This is episode 78, and it's for Friday, March 5th. And we're talking about reparations. And Smith had some friends in town this weekend at the wineries, and they kind of got into a debate about the whole reparations thing. And you know, he suggested doing a part two. And I was like, okay, yeah, sounds great. Let's get into it. If you haven't heard the first show we did about reparations, please go back and check that out. And don't forget to follow us on social media. Everything will be in the description. Send us some likes, some thumbs up. And again, thank you all out there for listening and vibing with us here at the HPR Chronicles Podcast. Yeah, Smith. So it's a rainy day in wine country. What's going on with you?
It is kind of rainy. Yeah, things are good. Just working, with the VA and trying to stay warm and dry.
Nice, nice. Make sure you speak up or put your mic closer to your mouth so we can get
Is
a
that
nice.
better?
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah,
Okay. Sorry.
that's way
Yep.
better actually. Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. Cool. Yeah, man. So you
So
want
we
to get
did that
into this
episode.
reparate? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we did an episode on reparations, and I've been ever since that episode. It just, it's there's been discussions politically about it, but it just made me think more and more like and I've been watching different shows that just makes me think about it more often and why we should get it, why it should happen. A
Right.
lot of people feel along the line that it should only, one reason is because of just what happened during slavery. Well, it's not just what happened during slavery, which I would contest that reasons why we should be getting some monetary reparations, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. It's not just because of slavery, because after slavery supposedly ended, after African Americans were supposed to be viewed as citizens because they were, especially if they were born here. There were still crimes against African Americans going on after people were supposedly free. Um, there was, of course, massacres that happened in different locations, especially down south, where they just took out whole cities and destroyed businesses and killed people and everything. Public lynching was a thing and back in the day, and it
Mhm.
wasn't just that. It was like the Ku Klux Klan, you know, hung were the only people hanging. The hangings were public, and they were attended by businessmen, lawyers. They'd have their kids, so it was family type of outings, type of things, and they would
Mhm.
just watch, a person being hung from a tree. Um, and so in that point in that imagery, obviously, any blacks that came across someone hanging, you're intimidated. You're not able to, walk around freely.
Right.
Then you had Jim Crow laws, the Confederate flag, and those statues that were erected that were done after the Confederacy lost the Civil War.
Mhm.
Then you
Now,
got
now, now,
legal
now,
things
re-
that
now, now,
went
real
on.
quick, can you
Yeah.
break down Jim Crow for the audience, just real quick, if you can, what it was?
Well, we did. I mean, we did a episode about that one too. But Jim Crow were laws um, that made it harder for blacks to just, like, they were being criminalized for simple little things like walking across the street, talking to um, a white person, or talking
Mm-hmm.
back to a
Mm-hmm.
white person, trying to um, ask for, just even like talking to a police officer, and even those officers, black officers that would have been um, put into the police force, they
Mm-hmm.
never
Mm-hmm.
had the right um, to arrest a white person. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, what? So that there's more to the Jim Crow laws. I mean, I would have to really look up, but I
Yeah, every
think
state
that's
had
pretty
different ones
much
and stuff, right, or something like that.
everyone. Yeah, correct. Some I think had similar, but yeah, each state create their own that would just keep.
That would benefit their particular. Yeah.
Yeah, and would put keep that would also make it easily um, for people to be arrested and in prison. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like taking it back to being enslaved. And then when I said legally wise, I was referring to like Supreme Court versus Dred Scott,
Mm-hmm.
the Supreme Court ruling that blocked the 14th Amendment that made it possible for states to do segregation,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone was, again, in the Constitution, is supposed to receive equal, but then the whole separate but equal came about.
Right. Right.
The
Right.
violence that was um, done against people, African yeah, African Americans, when they were trying to get civil rights, or just
Mm-hmm.
in general, all the and the violence that was done, not just from regular folks or the Ku Klux Klan at that time, but it was also state run, where, or local is actually local government, because it would be the local police, or maybe the governor would get involved, so then he would have the state police um, to remove blacks, to hit them with the water hose,
Right.
have to
Right.
release the dogs on them, all those other things.
Mm-hmm.
So those are reasons why it can't just look at slavery as the only reason for it. Is for everything else that happened
That
after that
happened
and
after.
continues
I
to happen.
mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, I would definitely say, if I could chime in real quick for the audience, I would definitely
Yeah,
say the key and main reason and purpose should be for the unpaid labor and coming here, uh, coming here by force, and all the unpaid labor, and the difference in economics based on that labor and how they benefited from stuff that those slaves built, that our ancestors built, like all the money they made from the cotton and everything else I heard about. But I do agree with you that, you know as a part of it, all that what you mentioned should also so be all that what you mentioned should also be considered,
hmm
because all that what you mentioned is still a direct result of that slave labor that was going on, and all the
correct.
mistreatment, and even after slavery was abolished, everything you mentioned, how they kept all that stuff going on, which kept us at an economic disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? And
Correct.
a
Yep.
mental and
Yep.
educational disadvantage to the whites in the state.
Correct.
I mean, so yeah,
And
I
even though
completely
that,
agree.
sorry, and even though there are a few individuals who were successful and able to create businesses, um, become millionaires during that time period, it's not like it was rampant. And at the same time, some places, again, like we already mentioned, the massacres where they were destroying businesses, but they sometimes just didn't pay a person. So let's say you did purchase, like, let's say, life insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and your father, and after you pass away, whoever's your descendants that are left around, sometimes they can get that money that they should have. So again, there was things that were done like redlining. Again,
Well,
we've
it's
talked
funny
about
you even
that.
brought up
You know,
life insurance because it started because of slavery. Slave masters would put insurance on their slaves. And when they would die,
yeah,
something would happen, they would get paid. That's how life insurance even started, which we need to do a show on. But that's exactly how it started.
yeah, that's right.
Life insurance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they would insure the slaves. You know what I mean?
and so then this is where I think we come to an agreement on the different reasons why. But I just didn't. I want to expand on so people didn't just think that, oh, it just once people were free and maybe civil rights, that it's all done, said and done, but it hasn't.
Right.
So
And see, a lot of
but
people think that, and that goes back to the argument you were making at the winery. I mean, your argument was you think they should just be given it no matter what. And I think that there needs to be education, rehabilitation, then reparations. And I don't know if the rehabilitation should come before the education, but they definitely should go hand in hand. You know what I mean? And see what you just said is a prime example of the point being made. And your friend's point was trying to make the same point. What you just said, a lot of people don't know about all that stuff you
mhm,
just mentioned. You know what I mean? That's why I think
correct.
it's so important to educate the people before the reparations. But go ahead. I wasn't trying to cut you,
So
but I know
no,
that
no,
was the
no.
main point you were bringing
That
up. Yeah.
was the point where because I say still we should the money, like let's throw out a number and let's say every African American who can trace their descendants to being enslaved.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also contend that anyone who was living in America but wasn't necessarily enslaved but had to deal with the laws and what was going on during after um, slavery ended or the
Mm-hmm.
Emancipation Proclamation and up until civil rights,
Mm-hmm.
because they still were oppressed. They may not have
Mm-hmm.
felt
Mm-hmm.
direct, and maybe in maybe when they came over, they end up being sharecroppers or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
like that. So let's just throw out a number. Let's say every African American, whether you're married or not, single, whatever, and you can be traced back, you get $500,000, right?
Right.
Now, my point is, once that money comes out, it will automatically change um, the lives of every African American that
Mm-hmm.
receives it. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much that they can do, and they'll be able to accomplish because they will have now their own power economically. And you know, the United States is a capitalist country,
Mm-hmm.
and if having money and allows you to change the politics.
Right.
So the other one point I was feeling about that is people will say you have to do the education and rehabilitation and all the other stuff. And my thing is, so we're automatically making an assumption that black people will not know how to manage their money if it was given to them. Some people are going to
Well, it's
blow it
not
no
all black.
matter
It's
what,
not all
even
though.
if you
But it's not
correct.
all
Not
black
all of
people.
them
Yeah, we're
are,
not saying all
but
of them. Yeah.
and correct. And I think there's going to be a good majority that are automatically going to do things that are going to benefit the economy anyway. Because so let's say a bunch of people are living in public housing. You all of a sudden get this money. You're not going to stay there. You're going to go find a home. You go, and if they go to the what's considered bad neighborhoods right now and they're low income, that's going to change quickly too, because some people are going to stay, some people are going to leave. But all those decrepit homes that may be around, a lot of stuff is going to get torn down, and bigger and better houses are going to get built because of the fact that they're going to have land. The property taxes are low. People are going to. It's going to just start changing. Like crime, how quickly do you think crime is going to decrease? I say overnight. As soon as people understand and when they get the money,
There's
why
no
am I
reason to
robbing
steal against
from?
each other. Yeah. Yeah, those crimes will
Correct,
go away,
correct.
but people still have disagreements that cause violence
Oh
and
no,
rage and stuff
nothing's ever
like
going to
that.
be 100.
Yeah,
That's why I only say
it
it's
won't
going to
be a
decrease. It's not
utopia.
going to.
Yeah,
It's not going to. Correct. It's going only going to decrease. And so, um, businesses are going to be created. Small businesses that are going to be in those communities because people are going to have the money to do stuff that you couldn't do because you were having to deal with everyday worry. So let's say you have always been concerned about, especially if it's a husband and wife that do get together, that's
Mm-hmm.
$1 million that they would have between the two of them.
Right.
They can do their things. The other point that I would also contend is anyone that has a child, they will also be getting money when they turn 18 once the law passes. It's not something that's going to continue forever. It's like this is
Right.
a payoff. Boom, we get our money. So um, anyone who's like let's say it happens next year and your daughter's still under 18,
Mm-hmm.
or it can happen where yeah, even if she's under, but when it happens, my son, he would be under 18, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, he gets when he turns 18, maybe he gets $250,000. That allows him to automatically, go to, yeah, want to go to a school so he can get the education that he wants. If he doesn't and he wants to go and get a trade, he can do that. If he wants to buy a home, he can, he has a down payment for that. It just gives, yeah, blacks that upper hand that others had, that, and it just spreads to everyone. And the reason why you almost have to give it
That
to
we
everyone,
never
because
had.
then you
Yeah.
got some, yeah, and then I even say it applies to people who are in jail and prison.
Mm-hmm.
Why? They can use that money to help get a better lawyer. Maybe they'll get off, maybe they won't. But if the
Well, and,
money
and and
is
the reason
used to
why they're
help
in
them,
jail is a part of this whole systemic system anyway,
is
which
correct.
a lot of them, which goes back to my
Yeah,
education and
like plea
rehabilitation argument. Yeah.
mhm. But you're still gonna get, people are still gonna be able to have that advantage, and I guess, maybe you make that available. But again, the only thing I said was really fighting against is making it mandatory, like making something available, and that's another business someone can go into, is the whole
Yeah.
education
Well.
and rehabilitation for
Yeah.
someone
Yeah.
for
I mean, one of the reasons
Africans.
why I say, and your friends were saying that this is very important. Oh, okay, so let's run the numbers real quick, because I researched some numbers
Mhm,
before we got on today. But before I even run the
mhm,
numbers, what I want to say is that one of the main reasons why the education of rehabilitation is so important is because the the ghetto is more of a mind state than anything. Whether that mind state was gotten there because of what happened through us through slavery and Reconstruction and Jim Crow and sharecropping and all that, whether that's the reason the mind state it is where it is, it is a mind state. For example, you could and I think I made this analogy on one of our shows in the past. If you took everybody from, say, I don't know, Beverly Hills, or let's not even go that rich. Let's say if you took everybody from, say, one of the middle class neighborhoods in Orange County, and you put them, let's just pick Watts, just because, and you put them in Watts. Watts will start soon looking like that neighborhood they came from in Orange County. And if you took everybody from Watts and put them in that neighborhood in Orange County, without the education and rehabilitation, it'll start looking like Watts. Because the same way you walk into someone's house and it's dirty, it's not because, oh, they can't make it clean. They themselves mentally are just not a clean person, so it's untidy. You know what I mean? And if you took them to a house that was super clean and you come a few days later, it'll be dirty. And if you take that clean person and put them in a dirty house, it'll be clean. It's just a fact, right? So the same way I cleaned up my girl's truck, a few weeks ago, because my mindset is not like that. So it's the same thing, right? And she has a baby, and it's really tough for her. And I'm not picking on her if she listens to the show. I simply wanted to give the audience just try to break down what I'm trying to say to its simple and plain form that anyone could kind of understand. You know what I mean? So so if you look at these numbers, right, and I like your 500,000 number, and I agree, it should be every single African American in these United States, and when they become 18, it automatically happens with them as well. And I think couples should get the money as well. So according to the records, the Africans that are here in the United States is 13.4% of the U.S. population. That's approximately about 42 million Africans that are here out of the 300 something million that reside in the USA. If you gave them all 500,000, as Smith is saying the number should be, that's 210 billion, which is doable. I don't know if you remember, but on our first show of reparations, I said it should be 1 million. And the reason why I said that is because of everything you brought up at the beginning of the show, because of all the repayment for the labor, the sharecropping, the Jim Crow, the Reconstruction, the redlining, the businesses that we weren't able to benefit from. I think it should be 1 million each. And if you did 1 million each, that's only 420 billion. I mean, just with this COVID alone, they've given away trillions. You know what I mean? So why can't they do the reparations and give us all 1 million? That's $420 billion. So what? You know what I'm saying? And it's so funny. Even though Africans that are here are only 13.4% of the population, they only hold 4% of the total household wealth. And that's 4.6 trillion as opposed to 90 something trillion that the whites hold, the average, the household. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
So yeah, I personally think it should be 1 million each. And as far as what you mentioned about trace back, we can't trace nothing back. Our history has been erased. Our lineages have been erased. I don't know if you want to use DNA and this and the other. In my opinion, if you're African American, you should be entitled to this money. And similar to what they did with like the COVID relief, right? I also think Africans that are here that are affluent and smart and stuff like that, say a Jay-Z or an Oprah, they obviously don't need it the same way I didn't get COVID relief because I didn't need it. I honestly think the affluent Africans that are here shouldn't be entitled to this. I personally think it should go to those Africans that need it, because one thing you have to remember is if you and I are abused by the same parents, we could have two completely different outcomes, which is what happened with my ex-wife and her sister. They both were abused by their mother, but one ended up bipolar with a bunch of issues, and one ended up just the opposite. You know what I'm trying to say? So not everybody is going to need the education and rehabilitation, right? There are Correct. Some affluent Africans that are here who have no idea about the history, some of the things you discussed, but yet they were still able to maintain a sense of business and affluence. And there are some here who are poor and know all the stuff, and they weren't able to. So for me, the education should be on an as needed basis. You know, it kind of should be, hey, you know, Jay-Z, you're a billionaire, but what do you know about your African history? Well, man, you know, I'm a billionaire because I'm a hustler. I got it from the street, just turned it to rap, turned it into business, but I didn't know about what Smith said on the show. So a person like Jay-Z, he would get a certain level of the education. He obviously doesn't need rehabilitation because he was able to somehow pull himself from those projects in Brooklyn and become the billionaire he is. You know what I'm trying to say? And he obviously doesn't need the money. And I'm sure Jay-Z would tell you himself, hey guys, take that $500,000 and $1 million and give it to a family that needs it. I don't need it. I was able to pull myself out. And, you know, then you may have another person, Joe Smo in South Central, who knows none of this. He may be poor, but knows everything, but couldn't pull himself out. So with him, you would give him a certain level of education and then give him the money. Then you may have his neighbor who may be poor, but doesn't know any of it. And him, you'd have to educate completely and rehabilitate. You see what I'm saying? So to me,
okay, so I disagree.
It should be on the left. It should be, all right, that's cool. So it's with me, I think it should kind of be on an needed basis. And if you don't do this, like what your friends were saying when we were at the wineries, what'll end up happening is you'll give a bunch of poor people in Watts all this money, and they'll end up staying in Watts because they'll have no idea what to do with it. They don't have no business sense. They may or may not have a bank account. They may or may not know that a commercial bank account is the worst thing to do. Go to another sort of bank account. They would need rehabilitation from the generational effects of slavery and Jim Crow and sharecropping, and get to a space of a certain bring their esteem back and their self-worth, and know what we created as Africans and exactly what happened. So when you give them that $500,000 or $1 million, they go, we're not going back to that. I had no idea all that happened. I'm gonna give you a perfect quick example, and then I'll let you chime in. So when I was coming up, and this is a great example for my whole point and your friend's point. So when I was coming up, even though I was smart and all that kind of stuff, just like all the other kids that's coming up in the city, whether you're middle class or poor or anything, I fell into like selling drugs and dealing drugs and all that. I had no sense of who I was, self-worth, anything as an African man in the United States, Smith. And this is a true story. This is a great point for what we're trying to make. My cousin came from New York, and he was educated about African history. And he and I started talking. It had to be like maybe in the afternoon, like 1, 2, 3 o'clock. We started talking, and he started breaking down African history to me. And I had never heard it before, never. And I'll never forget this, because this moment marked the rest of my life. And we started talking about this until 6 a.m. the next morning, until we went to sleep. I went to sleep and woke up and threw all of my 000 bags away, my 00 bags away, and all the drug dealers out there know what these bags are that I'm talking about. And from that moment on, I changed my life. That moment marked the rest of my life. Dude, that conversation we had gave me such a sense of power and self-esteem. I was like, Sean, I had no idea Black people created. Are you kidding me? My mind was blown. See what I'm trying to say? So imagine giving me this money when I didn't have this education. I wouldn't have responded the way I actually responded. When that happened with Sean, I was 19, I think, something like that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Dude, I had no idea. And had I gotten that $500,000, I would have just blown it. Mm-hmm. I would have went out and did all what the other drug dealers were doing. That moment marked the rest of my life. If it wasn't for that conversation, right after that conversation, I went into film school. I started learning about Black history. That moment marked the rest of my life. That's the reason why I'm the person I am today. Someone came and educated me. See, you understand what I'm trying to say? So now, if I was to get the reparations, I would do with the right thing. I know who I am. I know how powerful I am as a Black. Now I understand the history and what happened. So I'm not going to allow myself or my family to make the same mistake. But if you don't know as a Black person what you've created, who you are, what you've built, this, that, and the other, and you just give it to them, they're going to squander it, bro. And I'm not saying all of them, that idea is not a monolithic idea, but generally speaking, you'll have your few exceptions that'll do the right thing with it. But generally
if
speaking,
I can.
they're gonna blow it. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me get in there, and again, I'm just going to state again what I already said is that you're automatically assuming that most black people are going to
I didn't say
mess up
most.
and not, that's
Yeah.
even, well, I said all the first time. I'm changing them the most because again,
Yeah.
some of the discussions that you had, I did have when I was little bit younger, with friends and with family. So what I'm again, what will happen is not it won't happen to every family, but most families. Let's that idea that if you take the Watts group and put them in, excuse me, Orange County, and if they don't have the opportunities that they would get when they get to Orange County, and all that stuff disappears again. So you take a neighborhood like Harvey, Illinois, where I grew up. Okay, Harvey was like when I went back home and I was with my father, we went to out to eat, and this gentleman described Harvey. He said it was beautiful, great place. Like it was primarily a white neighborhood,
Right.
and it just people wanted to move there. Then,
Hmm.
as over time, more blacks moved in, and as what happened in Chicago areas, the whites moved further out in the suburbs,
Right.
further away from the city.
Right.
So then, more African Americans move in. Actually, some white people stayed. It just became a um, kind of diverse, but you have your section. So there's
Hmm.
black, there's Hispanics, and then there's whites still in that
Hmm.
in the neighborhood. um, so then what starts to happen is people are working, but the businesses start to go under, start to
Right.
not be able to survive because people are poor. They're just not getting the advantages that they had when it was there. Now
Hmm.
it could be because of mentality. I'm not positive, but I'm contending. My statement is when you give someone that money, if their kids are going to a public school, because the the people in that area are going to be able to start paying taxes, and some people are going to find it enticing that there's property that even if it's run down, they're going to level all that stuff, and they're going to build new houses. People are going to
Yeah.
have better homes. So
Yeah.
that idea that um, what was considered a bad neighborhood is going to start changing, and those opportunities are going to happen just um, like what you're referring to, the rehabilitation and the education. You know what?
Right.
People can now, a smart young black business couple or whoever can decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to build this rehabilitation center, and people can come to my place, and I can help them with their money problems, their issues, so that now that they have this money, they can start to do better things with it. I agree. Some people are going to squander it, but even if you've been trying to get money, and money is your only hustle every day, and you wake up and you don't have time to do those little things of cleaning up maybe necessarily because you're out trying to hustle to get that next dollar. You know what I'm saying? And if you have the half a mil, how many people are going to stay in a project and living in a project area if they have half a mil? People are going to leave.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
may go and try and buy a $500,000 house. If they do, they've wasted. That's you don't want that to happen. But you want people to be smart and go, okay, I can move to this other neighborhood instead of these houses that are only selling for 20 or 30. Maybe I'll move up and I'll buy something for 60,000. Oh, I have all these medical bills that have piled up because I never had insurance or blah blah blah. They can pay that off. The
Hmm.
other thing that could happen, and I contend that the 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 African Americans that don't need the money, they could take that money that they would get, and they automatically send it over, and now we have that Black People's the Black Power Party,
Hmm.
and we can make that our new CPAC that has now started. And because we have enough Jay-Z's and Oprahs, or even um, just someone who is already a millionaire and feels like, what's that extra meal going to really do for me? Let me throw it this way. Now we have a party. We have someone to do more things to have to what am I trying to get out is there's just so much people can do. If you have a dream, you want it to be a film person, a filmmaker, and then if you have the money, you can go to school. You could also not have to contend about thinking about, again, how you're going to make it through the day, and you have this money that you have now allowed you to go after your dreams that you possibly couldn't have done before because again it was just the everyday hustle that you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
worrying about how you're going to take care of your kids, how you're going to take care of your family, getting to work. If you do live in a bad neighborhood, oh my God, the violence of whatever. Oh, I don't have a car that I can drive to get to wherever. And just little things that some people are going to get, and it's going to make their lives, it's going to change their lives enough that I think Watts may not turn into Orange County, but it might turn into a Marietta, Temecula.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of type of thing, or maybe Pasadena. Just
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that we you that blacks do not know what to do. We did it before.
It's
That
not all of them.
mentality.
The ones that
There
are,
is, and I
yeah,
know
it's
that
not all
there's
of them.
the slave or the ghetto mentality. Kind of, I understand that, but for the most part, everyone wants to be better and do better. And I think if it's put out there and it's like, this is what's coming, this is what we'll be able to do. And, because we'll be obviously, there'll be ads or programs on TV for people to watch and just to have
Mm-hmm.
the idea of this is what's coming for us. And I think people will start to look at their history. One one thing I thought about is when as a kid growing up, and I remember watching Roots. And after that, I really didn't want to watch really too many more slave movies.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I watched, 12 Years a Slave, and then a
Mm-hmm.
lot of other things that have opened my eyes. And again, I've known some history of things, but this podcast has helped enlighten me more. But I've had friends pass on information to me.
Mm-hmm.
You, you, if I think I grew up in a feeling like I was middle class, but yet I probably, when I really think it's lower middle class, but I didn't, I didn't have to worry about not like my parents not having a paying for the bills, getting, lights wasn't an issue. My parents had insurance. So I didn't have, that's something I expected to have for myself. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you do have to see examples in someone, and then I have family members like just thinking about my uncle who passed away and hearing his story and how he luckily went to a private school and he was very successful. Education does help, but again, by the communities will change because the money will be there to make the schools better, and it'll cascade, and almost like that idea of this is how you trickle down. You give people the money, they start creating, going, oh man, I got this. I've always had this idea of this business I wanted to own and run, and
Mm-hmm.
then you do it now because you have the money, and you can do it in areas you thought were not going to be very safe because people are going to have that money. And again, why am I going to commit violence on someone else when I have just as much as them? Yeah.
Right. I mean, the funny thing is, there are a lot of rappers that have money, but they're so miseducated that they try and go back and hang in the hood. You know what I'm trying to say? That's exactly
So it,
what I was talking about. And it's
you're
funny
right.
on this new Hip Hop Uncovered I've been watching, they talked about
Mhm.
that. They brought that up, how these rappers want to go back
But
to the hood and how silly it is.
here's the question. Here's a question though, and it is silly. But here's the thought though. If a bunch of people get $500,000 and no one's really trying to do too much of. I mean, because drugs are still going to be around, and in fact, people are still going to be selling.
Yeah.
I'm just contending that they're still going to be selling to the clients that they had. It may be different. Some people may be able to then again be able to take themselves to a true real bit drug rehabilitation,
Rehabilitation, yeah.
and
Because then
and
they'll
get
just blow all
themselves
the
out.
money on
And now
drugs
they
like
have
people
money,
do with money.
but then they have the money to get a better to put themselves in a better facility, because going to
Right,
the
but that's
public
something you
ones
have to. But that's
obviously
something you
may
have to
not be
want
working.
to do, though. So that's why the mental rehabilitation education is very important. When I say rehabilitation, I mean mental rehabilitation and somewhat physical,
Well,
because
you still
someone,
are not going to get
if you
everyone.
give an addict money, they're not going to automatically just go to rehabilitation. They have to want to go to rehabilitation for it to work. You're not going to help anybody that
So you
don't want to be helped. So when you give them
correct.
the rehabilitation and education and you get them to the point to where they want to be helped, then they'll take that money and help themselves and allow themselves to be guided for some actual help. That's why that education rehabilitation is so important. You know what I'm
I
saying?
again, I'm not gonna. I just don't want to ever make that a sticking point, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because of the fact that people, I I could, everyone can use to learn something,
Yeah, but you
but
agree
like you
that
said,
someone has to that someone has to want to be rehabilitated to go to rehabilitation. They're not just going to go on their own because they have money. They have to want to.
well, I mean, yes, I agree with that.
Right.
What I was saying is, if there is someone who's already been trying to get off of whatever they have, but they can't because
Because of
they
money, those
don't have the
people will
money,
go. Right.
this
Of
is
course. Yeah.
that
And
so
we're
I'm
not
just
talking
saying that
about those
there's
people. Yeah.
so many are going to be, yeah, but we don't know how many, and I'm not going to assume that it's going to be such a large number that people are not going to do better. That's
Right.
what
Yeah.
I'm
And
contending,
again, we don't
because
we
the
don't know the
idea is
number.
that everyone, but there's an already an idea of stigmatism that blacks are not going to do better because historically, but no one ever looks at it the opposite way of saying, oh my god, why do blacks trust being around white people when as much violence as white people have done to blacks, you know what I'm saying? So it's
Hmm.
never looked the opposite way. But obviously so much has been done to keep blacks down that
Hmm.
it's either the assumption is we're going to revolt and kill all white people, or we're not going to know how to deal with the money. And I
Right.
contend that even though not everyone knows what to do with, but some are going to automatically start doing things um, in a positive way. It's going to be
Right.
a
And the thing is,
majority
there's actually
of
more.
blacks, and it's going to be the turnaround is going to be seen quickly, is my opinion. So
Right. Well, there's actually more poor whites than poor blacks anyway. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
but like what's their excuse? They supposedly had every opportunity, right? I mean, they were never
Hmm.
enslaved here and did slave labor and had companies built on their backs. So what's their excuse? You know what I'm trying to say? We were
Oh,
always
I'm not even.
powerful. Yeah, we were always powerful people, and we were brought here by force and put in this situation that disenfranchised us financially and educationally and mentally. You know what I'm trying to say? And again,
Yeah.
everybody isn't affected the exact same way. And after we're such a resilient people. If you look at the history after slavery and all that, we did, like you mentioned, we did have our own towns and banks
Right.
and the whole thing, and we were able to bounce back pretty well, but that's only because we're such resilient people, and they
Correct.
continued the oppression and slavery in different
Hmm.
ways that pushed us in the corner that we're on now, and a lot of us
Yeah, but like
were
you said,
affected
we
by it.
still continue,
Right, because we are
and like
resilient
your
people.
point is, we still did what we, yeah, we kept still being successful despite, or
Despite.
not all of us, but
Yep.
people are still, despite what was going on, you still have successful African Americans that made it. And but if you look at the even though there's more poor people, I mean, just the
Hmm.
amount of blacks that have the wealth, and I think you talked about that, how it's nowhere near the wealth that whites have
Right.
in this country, and even within our own group, the numbers are not like the exact same.
Right.
Um, everything for African Americans is lower than what whites have attained
Right.
so far in history. In history, yeah. So I just wanted to, again, my point is, in white America, and when I say white America, I'm just referring to the government, um, uh, stating that, or not even just the government, but like whenever blacks have asked for things to happen, it's always been wait, wait, and
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
And no, the time has come to stop waiting. It needs to be just done. And then, you know what? America can now could get rid of some of those rules and laws that white people are so pissed off about, like affirmative
Mm-hmm.
action. That
Mm-hmm.
can disappear. It,
Mm-hmm.
how many our issue with cops, that will probably diminish because of the fact that a lot of people that might get shot and taken down are now going to have the money to get successful lawyers, and then we'll have again the economic or the political power to change the laws and make it so that the stuff that is going on is going to be prosecuted. We
Right.
will have the power to do the political changes that make um, that that
Right. I
other
mean, we'll
well,
vote.
that white people have benefit from.
Yeah. With that education, we'll probably come in and vote a lot more. I don't know the
Yep,
number of who votes within the community, but with that
I think it's
education,
pretty
we'll
low.
probably vote. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, man. So I mean, I agree that I
I mean, the only
I
thing we
think I
disagree
only
on is
yeah.
education and rehabilitation.
Right. And again, I'm not saying that all of it, like I said, it's on an ad needed basis. I'm not saying, and I'm not assuming that all of our people would know what to do. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, on an as needed basis, there needs to be education and rehabilitation. Like, you and I, we educate ourselves. You know what I mean? There's probably some unseated rehabilitation that we don't know about that still affects us because of slavery and oppression. So we may need a little slight mental rehabilitation. Not that it affects us in any way financially, but there's things that affects us, whether it's conscious or subconscious, how we're viewed and how we view whites in America because of how we got here and why we're here. So with you and I, there may be some slight mental rehabilitation that needs to take place. But again, on an as needed basis, no one's saying that, just automatically all of us wouldn't know what to do with, what I'm trying to say, or all the poor people wouldn't know what
Hmm.
to do with it. I'm not saying that at all. Even in the poor neighborhoods, the ones that need it, that's who needs to actually get it. So they don't
Gotcha.
end up back in the same place that they are now. I mean, a lot of them probably don't even know that you can put 200,000. Okay, so let's call it 500,000. Let's call it a
Hmm.
million. What I think is actually more fair. A lot of them don't know that you could put 500,000 of that in a Vanguard account, let's say, and you could
Hmm.
live off of. You'll probably get 4 to 5 thousand a month consistently for the rest of your life, and take the other half a
Yeah.
million and invest it in some businesses. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
even know that. You know what I'm trying to say? A lot of
Yeah. I
people,
know.
a
I
lot of
know.
our people
I get
don't
it.
even know that. So it's like, again, on an as needed basis, education, man, on every topic, finance, business, you know what I mean? Self
Well,
worth,
here's a
esteem, like, you know,
yeah.
everything, real estate. I mean, everything, bro. And the rehabilitation
So the one
mentally.
thing, well, the one last thing that just popped in my head is, you know, we think that it's almost like most people have always thought, what happened? What would I do if I won $1 million?
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like most people have thought about, and either they have thought about moving, like every, I mean, so the idea that if they get the money, they don't have a slight idea of a, some people have thought of it and then been like, it'll never happen. So it's gone out of their mind. But most people have really kind of considered like, if I actually won $1 million or I had $1 million, I would do this, this, and this. Some of
Hmm.
it's going to be smart and some of it's not. But I just think that because America and like lotteries and stuff like that, most people have considered that idea. But as you say, and that's very true, most don't know that if you got a million, you put 500,000 in a Yeah, in a Vanguard or something like that account, and you'll get the money off of interest every
Hmm.
month, and
Hmm.
that's enough to survive. Where again, when we've discussed like pursuing your dreams, you can pursue your dreams with that amount of money and live
Absolutely.
comfortably. It just don't be stupid, you know.
Absolutely.
But
That's what I'm
so
saying.
hopefully, um, I really do hope something like this happens, and I really do hope it happens sooner rather than later, because the longer it is, that number that we just quoted isn't going to go down. It's actually going to go up, and people
Hmm.
will demand, expect way more, and then it's just going to become a little bit more ridiculous in a way. But
Yeah. I
it is
mean,
what it, it's
it's
deserving.
probably going to take some time because I think the proper steps needs to be, had. Last thing I'm going to say is I agree with Diddy and a lot of these other people that before that happens, we need to have some sort of organization that for us, by us, represents us in the United States. Before that happens, I think that's very important. Some sort of
I agree with
coalition that
that too.
we're involved in, that we come together as a unit and say what we want and what we expect in the United States. I completely agree with that. So
Hmm.
anyway, that's it for me. You had anything else?
Nope, that was it. Thanks for letting me get this stuff off my chest.
Oh yeah, sure. I think
Without
it
the
was a great show. I think it's a great show.
yeah.
I think it's a very important show. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna name it. I'll figure something out. Yeah, it was a
Right.
really good show. It's just some thought. We both brought up some thought provoking points that I think people will
Yeah. Yeah.
comment on in the comment section and stuff like that. So yeah, man. Well, thanks for checking in, Smith, and once
Thank you.
again, don't forget to subscribe on ISNT Group Digital on YouTube. And thank you for listening to where you get your podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media, guys. And yeah, we will see you guys next week. It's the HPR Chronicles podcast with Shaquan Smith. And we're both wearing our HPR Chronicles sweatshirts. You know what I mean? If you want these, we can get these
Let
ordered
us
up for
know.
you guys. If you're all about that
Definitely.
history, politics, and race, we'll let you guys know whether leave us some messages or DMs in our social media, and we'll get a couple of these sweatshirts and shirts out to you. So that's what's up. All right, Smith.
All
They
right.
need to go ahead and cut the check. That's what needs to happen
They
now.
need to cut the check.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right, peace.
Yep. Have a good one. Drive safe.
All right, thanks. Peace.